It was the early morning, and Peppa and George were still sleeping. Then Peppa opened up her eyes and thought, "There's something strange going on in the bedroom." So she got out of bed and noticed that there was a really bad smell in the bedroom. It was so stinky, she began to cough. And then Peppa went to wake up George. And she said, "George, you have to get out of bed. There's a really bad smell in here." George was still really sleepy, but he finally managed to say, "Peppa, what's the problem? I don't smell anything wrong. But you know, sometimes during the night, my toy dinosaur, he farts a lot. He can't help it, so I just choose to ignore it, and it really doesn't bother me that much." And with that said, George left the bedroom. Later on in the kitchen, George was eating breakfast, a delicious cherry pie. Then Daddy Pig came along, and he said, "Good morning, George. I see you're eating breakfast. An entire cherry pie?" "Yeah," said George. "I just eat what I want these days, and it seems to be working out for me." Then Daddy Pig started to cough, and he said, "There's a really bad smell in the kitchen." And George replied, "Maybe it's coming from the fridge. There might be old food in there." And then he thought, "Oh no, it's happening again." So George got off his seat and quickly left the kitchen. Later on, George was doing something with the laundry machine when Mummy Pig showed up. "George, are you doing laundry today? That's kind of strange." And George replied, "Yeah, I just had to put something really dirty inside. That's all." "Oh," said Mummy Pig. "Well, can I take a look?" Maybe you shouldn't," said George. "It might be a little stinky." But Mummy Pig knew that something strange was going on. So she opened up the washing machine door. And that's when a really bad smell came out. While Mummy Pig started to cough, George thought, "Oh no, it's happening again." Then he quickly left the laundry room. When he got outside, George thought, "Finally, I'm by myself and nobody will bother me." And then he let out a tremendous fart. And then a few more. But then, somebody caught him with a spider web. And that's when the amazing Spider-Man showed up. And he said, "Finally, I caught the guy who was farting everywhere." "It was you, George." And George replied, "I can't help it, and I don't think it really bothers anyone." "Really?" said Spider-Man. "Your farts just killed all of Mummy Pig's flowers." "Well, I eat cherry pie for breakfast, lunch, and dinner now," said George. "And that's just what happens. I get really powerful farts." "With great power comes great responsibility," said Spider-Man. But George replied, "You can't stop me. My farts are even stronger than your superpowers." "We'll see about that," said Spider-Man. "Prepare for battle." And then George and Spider-Man began to fight. "Ah," said Spider-Man. "My web shots are useless against your farts. And this suit does nothing to protect me from that awful smell." Then George said, "You'd better give up now, Spider-Man. My farts are just too powerful for you." And then Peppa showed up in her Elsa costume. And she said, "George, your farts are causing a lot of problems today. You really gotta stop it." And George replied, "There's no way you can stop me. I already beat Spider-Man." So George lined up another fart attack. But that's when Peppa used her ice magic to freeze George's bum. What did you do to my bum?" said George. "It feels really cold." "I froze it because you're using your farts to fight people." "George," said Spider-Man, "you gotta be more careful when you're letting off your farts. Try to eat a little better and let your farts out when nobody's around." Okay, said George. I won't use my farts anymore to fight people, and I'll try to let them out in the bathroom. Now, will my bum go back to normal? It feels like there's a bunch of ice back there. And Peppa said, it's a hot day, so it should melt in a few hours, and that'll give you some time to think about what you did. So Peppa and Spider-Man tried to fix Mummy Pig's garden, while George patiently waited for his bum to melt. So, what do you guys think? Are George's farts a superpower? Or are they just a stinky problem? Let me know in the comments below what you think, and you just might see it in a future episode. Peppa was hungry, so she came to the kitchen looking for a snack. And that's when she saw a slice of cherry pie on the countertop. The pie slice looked a little bit old, and it even smelt kind of funny. But Peppa was getting really hungry, so she decided to eat it anyways. After she was done, Peppa felt a little bit strange. And pretty soon, her stomach started making all kinds of weird sounds. Then Peppa thought, maybe I'll feel better if I lay down for a while. So she left to her bedroom. In her bedroom, Peppa felt even worse, and she thought, maybe I should go straight to the bathroom. But pretty soon, Peppa was lying in bed, too sick to move. The room felt like it was shaking, and Peppa thought, I really have to use the toilet right now. And that's when Peppa had diarrhea. Afterwards, Peppa realized that she had taken a poop on her bedroom floor. And she thought, Mummy's gonna be so upset at me. I hope she doesn't find out. And just then, somebody entered the bedroom. It was George. And when he saw the poop on the bedroom floor, he asked, what happened? And Peppa replied, I had diarrhea after eating a snack. I don't feel too good. And George said, well, we'd better clean up this mess before Mummy finds out. And Peppa replied, George, you gotta help me. I'm too sick right now to leave the bed. So George left the bedroom and went to the kitchen to look for some cleaning supplies. I need something that can hold all the diarrhea. And that's when he found the empty bucket sitting on the countertop. With this bucket, George thought, I can scoop up all of Peppa's diarrhea, so Mummy won't find out. And then he went back to the bedroom. But when George returned, Peppa was having diarrhea again. And George said, oh no, there's twice as much diarrhea now. It's not gonna fit into my bucket. And then Peppa said, can you get a bigger bucket or something? I'm too sick to leave the bed. You gotta help me, George. Then George went searching for a bigger bucket. So George ended up in the laundry room, and he thought, there's gotta be something in here bigger than that bucket. And that's when he saw the laundry basket. Maybe this laundry basket is big enough to hold all of Peppa's diarrhea, George thought. So he took it back to the bedroom. But when George returned to the bedroom, Peppa was having even more diarrhea. Oh no, said George. There's so much diarrhea now, I don't even think this laundry basket can hold it all. Then can you find something that's even bigger than that laundry basket? I'm still too sick to leave the bed, said Peppa. Bigger than this basket? Said George. Okay, I'll try to find something. So while Peppa laid sick in her bed, George went to search the house. George ended up in the living room, and he thought, I'm not gonna find anything bigger than that laundry basket, so I gotta think differently about this. And that's when he found the vacuum cleaner. So he took it back to Peppa's bedroom. But when he returned, Peppa was still having diarrhea, and now the pile was super high. Oh no, this isn't gonna work, said George. There's just too much poop on the floor. So what are we gonna do, George? Said Peppa. We can't just leave this giant pile of diarrhea here. Mummy's gonna be so upset. So George brought back the laundry basket, gave it to Peppa and said, "All right, put this on top of the poo." And then he said, "I need you to stand on top of the basket to make the poo smaller." So Peppa climbed on top of the basket, and the poo started to flatten out. Eventually, the poo got squished really flat. And so, they removed the laundry basket, and the pile was small enough to vacuum up. After a while, everything was back to normal, and the floor was clean. So George asked Peppa, "What did you eat that made you so sick?" And Peppa said, "I had a slice of cherry pie, and then my stomach started to ache." "What? You mean that cherry pie that was left out on the countertop?" said George. "I ate 3 slices of it." And pretty soon, George was the one having diarrhea. So it was a good thing that Peppa was around to return the favor.